Welcome to episode 81 of the BBC show. Welcome back. Hope you had a lovely Christmas with family. Bit of a lazy time of the year in it.
Lots of food.
Food, relaxation. There was a new film on Netflix. We both saw it called Don't Look Up.
Yeah, it's got a all-star cast.
Beautiful cast, isn't it?
Yeah.
Got Leonardo DiCaprio. It's got
Jonah Hill, Meryl Streep, Jennifer Lawrence.
Who's the girl, the news anchor girl? Who's that? Which one?
I don't know her name.
Kate Blanchett, I think it's called. Amazing cast. It's even got Chris Evans cameo. It's crazy. And I'm not going to spoil it. For those of you who have seen it, I might kind of, I guess, refer to parts of that film without giving it away. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. I think it's a very important film.
Yep.
And it's good that they're doing films like that. I think it's a great message to spread.
Exploration of the stupidity of the world at the moment.
Yeah, and how little, or how easy influence we are, and I guess some of the issues that we're facing as a society.
And I think things we prioritize. Yeah.
And I think we see these in many domains, specifically League of Legends community and gaming community. And look, I feel like in this podcast, you're the very logical, you rein me in, I'm like the...
Curtis gets out of control. I'm here to bring it back, Curtis. You're going to get cancelled soon.
Look, I'm going to burn this podcast to the ground one day.
And we're happy with that. We're ready to go.
I'm going to sink this shit one day, I'm telling you. And then everyone's going to be here. It's going to be having a breakdown. I'm going to be like that scene on Don't Look Up when I'm on the
talk show.
On the talk show, and I lose it.
Snap.
I'm going to snap one day.
Curtis will snap.
Yep. Or even if you haven't seen that Big Short, what's his name?
Steve
Carell's character. I forgot his name in the movie.
Mark Baum.
I'm going to lose it. I've had enough. And look, at the end of the day, we did a video recently on Nice, and I think we're pretty logical, and we broke that down as logical and objective as we possibly could. And I think it's a skill set that I think you're quite good at it. I don't think I'm good at it, kind of being like level-headed. And, I don't want this podcast to be kind of reacting to other people's takes.
Yeah.
But I feel like we have a responsibility to the community to kind of level the playing field. And what I mean by that is that it's cool to hate Riot. It's cool to hate on Riot because it gets the clicks. It's just the narrative, isn't it? It's the narrative that is always pushed.
You'll never, ever put out a tweet, a video, anything criticizing something Riot's doing. It's a very safe space.
Safe space, isn't it?
You're
can't go wrong.
You're never going to get, people are going to be with you.
Yep.
On the bandwagon.
You're going to get
herd mentality.
The fans will, herd mentality. It's literally herd mentality. And I got linked a video recently in the MLA Discord.
I like how your Discord just compiles. It's like, Curtis, what's this? Because they know, especially our communities, they know when they see bullshit, right?
Yeah, in a way.
And they just send us stuff all the time. It's like, okay, yeah. I think that what we're doing great with this podcast is we're starting to increase our bullshit detectors, for people that watch this. It's like, okay, this is ridiculous. This is where this guy's coming from. This is this guy's incentive to say this. This is what the community is doing and why they're blindly following this. And this is their level of skill.
People are good at now seeing the narratives that are at play. They're aware of it, and they can kind of take a step back and be like, wow, like this is exactly what was spoke about on the BBC show.
Not just other people's, but also themselves.
And their friends.
Their friends as well.
That's a big one. I think a lot of people in our Discord say, I can see this in my friend. Can you help me?
How many people have written into us in this podcast saying, they really actually hate playing with their friends now because they're just so bored of hearing these narratives in the league community.
Same thing over and over again.
They're bored and just makes them worse.
Because once you stepped out of it,
relationship with the game. What was it? Blob.
Yep.
Blob was a great example. He wrote in saying he started playing with his friends, then he relapsed on the whole 3-block process and the healthy relationship with the game, the growth mindset. That's how dangerous it is. And,
I got linked this video from a classic league influencer. His name is Skooch. And he made a video the other day. I think it was five or so days ago, called "One Item is Destroying the Meta." short video, 9 minutes long, talking about the crown item.
Shattered Crown, yep.
Yep, Shattered Crown. And it's got 100,000 views. And I took a look at it.
So you sit there, you're watching it.
Yep. And look, what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of break down what his arguments were, similar to what we did with the knees video. And then I kind of want to, again, break down the narratives. And again, in a way, I'm actually going to be on Riot's side. I have to be an advocate for Riot. I'm not paid. We're not paid by Riot.
People think that
people think we're like
in
maybe,
the comments, Curtis, the Riot apologist, here we go again.
Riot, Coach Curtis from Riot.
Coach Curtis, Riot Games. I don't know why you don't have Riot, Coach Curtis in your IGN, Curtis.
I mean, Riot, man, they don't even, we're under the radar, but we have to, because the scale is so far skewed onto the side of hate Riot that someone's got to be on their side. Someone's got to even out the playing field a little bit so we can actually get a objective view of reality, because it's not we are not able to see reality at the moment because of the narratives. Okay, and so basically he goes on to talk about how this the crown is really unbalanced. And that it's kind of making casters really overpowered, and it's quote, assassins are effectively useless now. And it goes on to talk about how, I'll go in a second, but that's kind of like the fundamental part of it. Now he did kind of go back and forth talking about how casters, people who play mages, like, Victor and Oriana, they should be very conscious of their positioning. But he was saying how this is so far ridiculous that they can just now walk up and face tank, and that it doesn't even matter. And then the item is so unbelievably overpowered that, it breaks the game in a way. He talks about how the game is just, they're destroying the game, blah, blah, blah. And now, we need to caveat this entire video by talking about who is this guy? Who is Skooch? Who is he? I had to do a bit of research. I didn't really know. I hadn't heard of him. And this guy... He's a classic League streamer.
So he streams and does YouTube.
Streams and YouTube. Does a lot of, funny content, stuff like that. And I think he plays a bit of jungle, plays a bit of mid lane, plays a bit of everything, really. But I think he's mainly a jungler, kind of flip-flops between mid and jungle. And I'm like, okay, given this guy has some very strong opinions and makes some very bold claims, to kind of see this guy's background, to get a little bit of insight into what this guy's worldview is like. What rank is he, and how often does he play the game, So, I looked at his OBGG, found his main account, NA. I'm going to bring it up right here. His main account is, he's been playing since Season 4 by the looks of things. His main account he was gold in Season 4, then platinum, then gold. Now he's, sits around gold 3, mid to low gold. Plays a lot. He plays a bit of Garen jungle at the moment, bit of Kayle mid. Last season, what did he play here? He played a lot of Nasus. He's a bit of a Nasus player, a bit of Shaco. Season before that, bit of, again, Shaco, Hecarim, Tryndamere, things like that. But some, I guess, niche picks. Now, this guy, what really, I guess, aggravates me personally, and again, this is from a defending the community aspect and protecting the relationship of the game from a lot of the viewers, is that he speaks as if you're stupid to disagree. He has this tone where it's like, this is so obvious,
blatantly obvious.
This is so blatantly obvious. If you disagree with this, that's the tone that he has within the entire video. So yeah, even at the end of the video, when he asks, "What do you think?" he's given you such a one-sided argument that you'd be an idiot, or you wouldn't even be incentivized to take the differing stance, because you'd be outcasted by the quote unquote League community anyway, and you're going up against his opinion. Now I get it. There's a lot of people here that he probably has a lot of casuals and stuff like that, but just because you've played the game since Season 4 doesn't give you the right to have such bold claims and such bold opinions. And I want to kind of use a few examples and a few analogies to kind of get a more holistic view here.
Because the easiest thing I can just picture here, it's like, oh god, Curtis is going for the rank. He's jabbing at the rank. Curtis and Nathan are rank shaming on the Broken podcast.
I mean, look, I can already tell the comments are going to be like, you guys are so negative, rank shaming, blah blah blah. But you're just tearing down other people. I'm being completely honest here. I'll give you an example. in a way, I've noticed a trend in the League community that the lower elo you are, the stronger the opinions.
Which is crazy, isn't it?
It's a bit of a trend that's starting to
I've
form.
also found the same thing. Yes, the lower elo people are the stronger opinions they have, which is very interesting.
Well, I think it makes sense because they don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
You don't know what you don't know, and because you don't understand how
Is it
you're.
the Dunning-Kruger effect? Is that?
I'm not 100% sure, but what I do know is that because you don't know how you're negatively or positively impacting games, and because you don't know how to replicate certain game states, everything feels like it's out of your control. So the first thing you're going to default to is itemization, metas, champion tier lists, all that shit. That's just what you're going to default to. So that's the narrative that is pushed.
It makes sense why someone that's not an expert at something would have actually a more convincing boulder because they don't have all the information.
That's correct.
And League in general is a very complicated
game. Now, we're reading a book recently called Influence, right? And it talks about how humans are psychologically influenced by all these different ways through cognitive biases, psychology, and stuff like that, right? And one of them is that there's an appeal to expert. You know, as an expert, if someone deems themselves to be an expert, we are a lot more influenced by these people. And they did a bunch of experiments where if you put like a doctor in front of your name, or you're the CEO of this, even if we're in a domain that has nothing to do with that field, they're going to trust their opinion more because they're deemed to be an expert.
Yeah.
And what I have found with a lot of these quote unquote educational or quote unquote like league enthusiasts or league influencers is
entertainers,
they masquerade as experts through the way they talk
and how many followers they have.
That's correct. Now, their backup, their ammunition, the foundation that gives them in their mind the right to have such a strong opinion is that they've been playing the game for such a long time. So he'll say, oh, I've been playing the game for years. I've been streaming this game for years. I've been playing for years all the time. Looking at my games played. That is you cannot conflate the amount of games played and how long you've done something with being an expert. There's some overlap, but there's a lot of differences. You got to be very careful here. I'm going to give you an example. I've cooked thousands of meals in my life. I started cooking. We learned how to cook in high school, kind of like we did cooking classes. We've cooked dinners. We've cooked breakfast. We've cooked lunches. I don't know jack shit about cooking. I couldn't tell you anything. I know how to cook a steak very barely. I really don't have any expertise when it comes to cooking in the field of cooking. Just because I have done it for 10 years, multiple years, doesn't mean I'm an expert because I haven't pursued mastery. I haven't put the time and effort to really learn the intricacies and the details of that craft. I haven't viewed it as a craft or something that I'm taking very seriously.
Sort of just like a to-do thing. It's like, oh, well, I got to cook to eat.
Right, and for him, I'm assuming he's kind of got to do it because it's a career for him and a job, and he's just kind of going through the motions, and he's played it very casually for a very long time. Games played doesn't always correlate with being an expert in a given field or time spent.
I can definitely. Kurt doesn't know shit about food, guys. Like
not at all.
Nothing.
You should have seen my meals.
Don't even know
not good.
What spices go together.
No, Nathan's a better cook than me. He's done way less. That just shows you've cooked. You know better. You know way more than me.
You really reckon?
You're better a cook than me for sure. When we lived together, you would cook better meals than me for sure. Your stir fries and your pasta.
Okay. Well, I'm still beyond. What is this? If there's anything below amateur, that's what I'm like a little baby, like a little child.
And you rose a good analogy about the gym, right?
Yeah, the same. We were talking today. Like we know like a couple of friends of ours that have been going to the gym for a long time, and they're no stronger. And just because you rock up to go to the gym, there's so many ways you can like cheat exercise. You don't really push yourself.
You don't really care about it.
Yeah, you don't really care about it, right? It's like, I mean, we're doing we always talk about the 5x5 strength program. Like we're gaining strength at a quick rate, but we're like, doing the protein shake, the creatine, we push ourselves at failure every basically, set that we do. So, it's such a good analogy. Just because you show up to the gym doesn't mean you're an expert. And like, I'm not an expert either still.
Not even
but
close.
I probably know a lot more than someone like, it's probably, the people that we know, they've been going for the gym for so long. I'm stronger than them already.
It's crazy.
And I've been going for a year.
Because they just don't do it properly.
Because I've had actual effort thinking about, this is what I'm going to do. This is the program I'm going to follow. This is the program that works.
100%. So, it's very important to caveat this entire thing with this. So, sure, these people can have opinions, but they don't caveat it with that this is just one opinion and, I could be wrong here. And they don't really think deeply about what the hell's at play here. In my Cassiopeia guide, I played Cassio at a pro level. I've played it at a challenge level for years. And I went back to Cassio, learnt it from scratch in a mind to make sure that I kind of knew what I was talking about.
For your guide.
For my guide. And even then, in my guide, even though I dominated, like I was like 70% win rate to Master Tier, like smurfing in Master Tier essentially, I still said 4 times within the guide, this is just my opinion. There are many different ways to play Cassiopeia. This is just my interpretation. Even then, because I know, I don't want to push the message that this is it.
If you don't play this, you're an idiot.
I don't want to push that message, right? And it's so fascinating. I'm only saying this because I know what I don't know. I know that there are other interpretations. I know there's other high elo players. In a way, I'm kind of aware that I don't know a lot of shit because we've been doing coaching for so long, playing for so long at a high level. We learn so much every day. And according to this trajectory, there is still a hell of a lot of things out there that we don't know. And I think that being humble and this curiosity, it fuels us in a way to have better quality opinions. So these people have opinions, but they're so low quality. And this is the thing I hate nowadays. We spoke about this in the MLA as well, was like, people can have opinions, but like, just because you have opinion doesn't mean people need to listen to you. Like, there's good quality opinions and highly educated opinions from experts, and then there's low quality opinions. And right now, a big problem within the league community and the league culture is that we can't differentiate. People aren't able or don't have the skill set or the toolkit nor the knowledge to be able to differentiate between the experts and the non-experts. So people are getting pulled in all these different directions to have a negative relationship with the game based off some casual that doesn't know jack shit about the game. This guy barely knows the fundamentals of the game.
Yeah.
And so, to go back to this video, he had the most ridiculous, like, this take that really aggravated me. He's talking about casters, right? And he said, to give him the credit, he spoke about how he says he's always respected casters players because you've got to be very spatially aware.
Positioning is really important.
Like, positioning is very important, right?
Yeah.
He said that within the video, and that's totally true. But then what he said was, but now you can build this one item, and then to retract that statement, he said, casters can always just sit back and do damage. Like, it's all about positioning. But how do you know about what casters need to do to climb in solo queue and how they play? That is not how mages play in solo queue at all. If you watch any good quality mage player, that is not the way League of Legends has played out. Maybe in season fucking 3 when you sit there in the front to back with a Nivea and put your R out, sure. When are you ever going to be sitting there? I mean, okay, I would say 1 in every 10 fights are you able to sit back and take no damage. No matter what, you're taking damage from somewhere. Either Camille's flanking your ass, or someone's diving you on the back line, or someone's coming in from the side, or the fight's so chaotic you're getting there late.
There's some AoE.
There's some AoE. There's some Yone that's going through the entire team, or like a Darius is running forward into you. There is so much multi-threat within the game. The way the game has evolved is that to play a mage at high elo, it's hard. It's very, very difficult. What does this guy know about playing mages and climbing through the ranks with a mage? Yeah, he plays Kayle and he plays Darren.
He doesn't have any merit to comment on something like that.
So you can't really comment on the effectiveness or non-effectiveness or how mage players should or shouldn't play.
And he wouldn't know what's broken and what's not broken.
You can't know what's broken and what's not broken. Now, I'm not saying Crown isn't objectively strong. It is objectively strong. And I've covered this in my videos. Riot... Put 2 and 2 together, numbnut. You're in preseason. Look at the trends over the years. You said you've been playing the game for 7, 8 years, whatever. They buff a lot of items at the beginning of the year in preseason, so then they can tone it down to balance it out a little bit before the pro season, before the competitive season starts, which makes a lot of sense. Now, people have complained about Burst being in the game and not being able to play mages because of all the multi-threat. And then they put one item in there that can actually protect mages. Yes, albeit it is a little bit overtuned. And now everyone says, Riot's destroying the game. The game's ruined. Assassins are over. You can't... What? Like, Riot can't even... No matter what Riot do, whether they buff mages, nerf mages, this item, it doesn't fucking matter what they do because they're always going to get torn down by these people. There's always going to be some idiot on YouTube making a video about, the game is doomed. Riot's ruining it all. The game is going backwards. From some idiot who just plays, Shaco and Gold. Like, how can you have that strong opinion? Caveat it. And it's just the constant narratives that is not looking at the specifics. And then to top it off, this is what made it even more ridiculous. He literally made a screenshot. He put a screenshot in the video. and it said it showed like a Lux who built. It was like a 12 and 2 Lux that built like Crown or whatever it was, and then he showed the screenshot of the in the game, and he was playing. He had a Fizz, and he was playing Garen jungle, and he says, "Now as soon as this Lux builds this item,
I can't do anything.
I can't do anything anymore, dude. You're playing Garen jungle into a Lux, bro.
It's embarrassing.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You're saying that the Fizz played perfectly, like this, and even if that wasn't his intention is to kind of show that Crown is an objectively strong item, and I have nothing wrong with that take. Crown is an objectively strong item, but it's a very healthy way. The game has to go in this direction because playing a mage otherwise without it is unhealthy. Yes, I'm sure Riot could do a better job of like altering the numbers, but the intention is there. So it's like we have to kind of compensate for Riot in a way here on the BBC show because no one's on their side. And because if everyone's making these videos about X item being OP and X item ruining the game, imagine a poor gold player or a new player that's coming to the game, some casual player who just come from Arcane, clicks on this dude's channel because he's quite funny or whatever you might be your cup of tea.
He's popular again.
Or he's popular again. You know, heaps. I mean, let's see how many subscribers he has.
That video got 100,000.
Like video got 100,000, but he has like, here we go. Sorry.
Oh, we're going to advertisement here.
Giving him money here. 358,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
You know,
it's one of the big ones.
One of the big ones. And I am frustrated. And that's why I'm tying back to Don't Look Up, that movie. I'm like that Leonardo DiCaprio on the...
There's a comet flying to Earth.
There's a comet coming to Earth.
It's so obvious.
No one believes
You get
me.
into the details.
And everyone else is blinded by everything, all the media and all the
sexy, fun stuff.
It's just, I'm just, you know, we're just going backwards. We go one step forwards and then all the other things goes 17 steps back. We're just chipping away at this useless shield that's not going to get penetrated.
I always think about this in terms of like bigger picture. Like, what does everyone want? So like, okay, so let's say if the game's perfectly balanced, right? Does that mean you're able to instantly get to challenge? Does that mean everyone's challenger? Like, I had this one guy specifically who insults you. He will know who he is, but he always comes in with general statements. And I keep telling him, like, let's get specific. Like, here's every narrative in the book. Like, he's got it all written down. Yeah. He's memorized everything from every content creator, right? And it's just again and again. And then we get into the VOD, you know, the mistakes are obviously 10 minutes before that got to that situation, you know, and like I'm so disconnected from general statements because it's not the problem.
It's not the problem.
You're missing the point. Everyone's missing the point, you know? So like he's, you know, going to be complaining about Shattered Queen, but he can't even play the lane fights correctly. Or like he's not tracking or doing the fundamentals. So but that's what I'm thinking. Like, so, you know, like let's say this item doesn't exist. Does that mean everyone... Because I'm assuming people complain about the game because they're not getting the results they want? Or is that... Maybe that's the wrong take.
I think this is what it is. So tying back to what we read, that we're reading in Influence, right? There's a section in the book that talks about loss aversion in a way where humans hate getting something taken away from us. So there was a... Did I talk about this on the podcast last episode with the Coke? The new Coke and the Diet Coke?
No, I don't think you did.
Okay. So there's a story in the book that talks... This is a true story. When Coke, I think it was in the 70s or 80s, they came out with a new formula for Coca-Cola. Have you read that bit in the book yet?
No, I'm not up for that.
And so, you know, Coke was obviously very popular, a huge part of American culture. And they altered the formula. So it's called the New Coke. New Coca-Cola came out. And then there was outrage in the country saying, you know, we want old Coke back. We want old Coke back. And then what happened is that they actually before this, up until they released New Coca-Cola, they did all of these experiments, blind assessment, like experiments saying, without knowing which is the new Coke and which is the old Coke. And the overwhelming majority preferred the new Coke, right? And there's two things at play here. Number one, we prefer things that we can't have. Right, we genuinely prefer things that we can't. If something we can't have, or something like it's scarcity, or it's very scarce, or we can't have it, it's very limited. We automatically assume that it's better,
worth
more, and we want it more. So that's where Coca-Cola misinterpreted the data, obviously, because they saw that.
Yeah.
So there's that, but also because would you prefer new Coke or old Coke? There was that element of things. But then there was also another one where if you take away the old Coke, you're taking away someone's freedoms in a way, and they want what they used to have. So even if like new Coke, if they kind of didn't replace it, they maybe introduced it alongside it, maybe there wouldn't have been the outrage and people kind of would have chosen. But the fact that you removed the old formula, it made it cause a huge outrage, which is where I think is kind of happening with COVID and the lockdowns. It's like you're removing freedoms from people, and that's a very dangerous thing to do. And there's many examples in the book that talks about removing freedoms. Like there was one in Russia where some guy came into power and gave people more freedoms, and then they overrid him, the government, and then they took away the freedoms of people, and then people were protesting, we want our freedoms back, because they had it once. And what I feel like these people, they're falling into these biases, and they're falling into these psychological things in their head. Sure, you had this once, and that's why people reminisce on the old school League of Legends. We reminisce as
Season 4 was the best.
Season 4 was the best. X was the best. I missed when this did this. Sure, you miss it, but you don't actually, you can't be logical and objective about what is or isn't better, because we're psychologically influenced to want what we can't have. And I think a lot of this stuff is like, everyone's just falling into these traps. I think it's what it is. We're just falling into these traps. Oh, I used to be able to burst this guy and now I can't. That's annoying. And now I want to complain about it. That's just what it is. It's just complaining because that's how we feel. Everyone's just getting influenced by their emotions over and over again and making videos out of it. And because everyone else feels that way, it's a great way to get clicks, because people feel that same way.
Yep. And it's very, as I said, it's very safe. You're always going to have the herd follow you there.
Yeah. So there's, for that book, by the way, it's fascinating. If you're not in the book club, we're doing that. Even if you're not in the book club and you want a book to read, that is an exceptional book, influenced by Robert Cialdini. A lot of the stories and the psychological stuff it talks about is just mimics. It just highlights exactly the herd behavior of the League community and Reddit and everything. It's incredible. So, look, in a way, it's got to call bullshit on these content creators, because, they're ruining people's relationship with the game. They're overemphasizing details that aren't important whatsoever. People complaining about like Ludens versus Crown. I look at a VOD of like one of these players. You've missed your first 3 E's as Lux. Is the damage that you're going to get from this item going to make up for the fact that you just missed these 3 E's? Yeah. You miss one ability, you're already out damaging. It doesn't matter what the fuck item you build, dude. Like, you've already out damaged whatever. You can build whatever you want. The premise is you just do the basics first. Don't die to a gank. Get a good reset. Ward onto one side and hit your abilities first. And then we can maybe talk about itemization later on.
Yeah.
And I don't blame the community for thinking like this, because these people are
shoving it down their throat.
With clickbait content. It's aggravating. It really is aggravating. So I got my rant done.
There we go. You headed there first, Curtis.
And now I'm just going to get roasted by some Skooch fanboys here anyway.
No, freedom of speech. Unless you're Challenger, Curtis doesn't give a shit about your opinion.
Oh, no, don't say that. Don't say that.
No, but it is important. It is important to check people's merit and all that.
Oh, yeah, okay. And let's say if he made this entire video with the caveat saying, look, I haven't really played that much.
This is my experience.
This is my experience. And like, or said, this is not that important in reference to just being better at the game, but it's maybe worth talking about. This is
annoying.
This is an annoying item, and hopefully that they make changes like they proposed, and you can kind of see how you can make a video, but it's a pointless video at the end of the day anyway. So that's what people want to watch, right?
Obviously,
yeah. Moving on.
All right, so. Speaking of Riot Games and direction and balance changes, there was an interesting article that was posted. When was this? 9 days ago. And the title of this article was Quick Gameplay Thoughts on December 17th. What's next? So I'm just going to read this article and we can break down certain points. It's pretty short. It's not that long. All right, so this is from Hi Folks. This is Riot Access here to talk about some upcoming gameplay plans, talking about the preseason. They said preseason 22 is looking pretty stable, and with the year coming to an end, it's a good time to talk about a few things on our minds for next year. Let me just quickly change the camera here, and there we go. All right, so short-term plans. Most of the preseason 2022 seems to have landed well, with the Hextech Drake in good shape and objective bounties looking solid after some adjustments. However, we're still actively monitoring the Chemtank Drake's terrain and Dragon Soul. Based on our observations, we're shipping a small change in patch 12.1, adding some Scryme Bloom plants. Those are the plants that you hit that give you vision in the jungle, in locations that should improve the defending team's experience in their own jungle. We knew that the Chemtank Drake would be a spicy addition, and we'll continue to keep an eye on it. Any comments around that, Curtis?
That's very fair. I think that's a really good... I like the way they're thinking, because the stealth is kind of hard to deal with.
I would say, of all the maps, the stealth, that is the biggest game changer.
It changes a lot.
It changes a lot, dude. The game feels so different, dude.
Stealth is true. There's two interactions in League that I think are very difficult to balance because you can't measure them. Healing and stealth. They break the game in a way. And I think that, I like that they're thinking like that about stealth,
Yeah. Yeah, they're definitely aware that
because think about stealth. It's not defense. It's not purely defense. It's not purely offense.
Yeah.
It's not something that you can kind of measure how much damage one person can or can't do. It's not a stat that you can just
It's like invisible threat.
Threat. And that's why Eve it's a very... it's not a good champ design from that reason. I don't like it because it's just... something about it. There's something about Eve. But yeah.
There's counterplay to stealth. There's counterplay to Eve. You just group,
Yeah. But at the same time, the...
Control wards.
At the same time, though, I think that the stealth as a concept, I'm not saying it's balanced or not, but it's just it's very tricky thing.
Tricky bicky.
Very tricky.
All right, so there are several other areas of the game we're looking at, too. In 12.1, the teleport summoner spell will change significantly. Before 14 minutes, the new teleport has a longer cooldown. It can only target towers, so you can't TP into minions anymore. Before 14 minutes, we talked about that change on the last episode. We thought that was overall pretty good. We were happy with that. So they said in this season, teleport had way too much early game influence on the outcomes of other lanes. Our goal is to limit that influence and eliminate some problematic edge cases while retaining its ability to stabilize losing lanes, allow mid to late game side lane, and create opportunities for flanks. So that's good. We're happy with that. We're also looking to change some fighter items. In particular, Sterak's Gauge has become a universal purchase, washing out the differences between bruisers like Darius or Alauri versus light fighters like Fiora or Aurelia. We're also working on other items, most likely more of Mormorius and Death's Dance, so that champions moving off Sterak's will have adequate alternatives. We don't have a ship date for that yet, but it's definitely been the first half of 2022. So you don't play those really type of champs, Curtis, but Sterak's is definitely you just build it. It's just in your build. I think extra diversity there, it's obviously the best.
It's just too obvious that you just want to buy it, even if it's not designed for your champ in a way.
Yeah. It pops a fat shield. You're strong. It's just
too versatile.
It's very good. We're also so that's good that they're adding other items to those fighters. We're also working on some mid-scope champion adjustments. Our next two projects are Janna and Ahri early in the year, two previously popular champions who have fallen out of favor lately. These will be smaller in scope than the Tahm Kench rework, but we will substantially think of Lucian's recent update. This sort of work has gone well so far, so we're building upon our process for it in the upcoming year, better defining our goals and how we'll pick the target. So this is not full reworks, but they want to make some adjustments to Janna and Ahri and stuff. That's funny because on our server, we had a lot of Ahri super high elo players, dude. That champ was annoying, dude.
But I've got a specific take on Ahri.
Yeah.
This is, I'm going to interject here.
Yeah.
So, this is controversial. So, Ahri's a popular champ. It used to be a lot more popular.
Yeah.
It's kind of got less popular. We have a few Ahri mains in the MLA. Now, I've outright said, I try to prevent people from playing this champ as much as possible.
Whoa.
I think Ahri is the definition of an outdated champion.
Yeah, okay.
Fundamentally outdated.
Yeah.
The problem with Ahri, so Ahri is what you would call a generalist. All right? A generalist is something that, I don't know if there's one in the jungle, maybe a Lee Sin, kind of like a generalist. You're good at, you don't excel at any one thing,
Okay.
but you're good across the board.
Yep.
The difference between, say, a Lee Sin, though, and an Ahri is that Lee Sin is fundamentally, it's the kit is well designed and it has a lot more utility.
For the jungle position.
For the jungle position specifically. The problem with Ahri and in mid lane specifically is that being a generalist in mid lane, it makes your identity very unclear and it makes what you want to do in the game very unclear.
Interesting.
So I talk a lot about League in this. So this is my kind of coaching mantras, is that you want to have a clear as possible reference point as possible. So what I mean by reference point is something that, think of it as like a North Star. It's something that is influence. It's like what you want to do next. It's something that's pointing you in the right direction.
This is like you're learning a champ mastery. Like, you know what a great game looks like with this champion because it's really obvious the North Star.
Yes,
what the champion strengths are.
But even then, it's like, because think about League. There is even in the jungle, there is so many decisions you can make. Do I gank? Do I farm? Do I do an objective? Do I reset? Do I full clear? Do I do these advanced games? In order to determine what to do, you need to think about. You need to have a reference point, something that's coherent with your champion's identity. The problem with a generalist is that having a clear reference point, it's very hard and it's not intuitive. So when you play Ahri, you don't know what you should be doing. You actually don't know.
So when I think, does she have good wave clear? She has okay wave clear, doesn't she? Or is general good?
General. Everything's general.
So general wave clear, general burst,
your trading
general
is,
threat, general
everything's
trading.
average.
Okay.
Everything is average. Most of your ability, think about your Q is unreliable as trading because it's kind of mid-range and easy to avoid. So you need your charm, but charm gets blocked by minions.
Yeah.
You have high mana costs.
Yeah.
And your damage is actually kind of low. Like it's kind of...
Is it really? But if you hit a charm though...
Yeah.
If you don't hit the charm, you're useless.
Yeah, but think about it. Most champions that are very burst oriented that kind of want 100 to 0 you, they have more threat. Like Ahri a lot of the time can't just randomly 100 to 0 you. It's not like an Annie, or it's not like something that
That's
can randomly...
true, yeah.
So it's like you get a lot of people to like 80% HP or something.
Got it.
You know? But that
20% HP.
But then you blow your ult, you blow everything, you get everyone to 20% HP or someone to 28%
But you can't
HP.
finish them off.
But then you're like, can't finish them off. You can't play shove and move because then if you use your abilities on the wave, you'll get traded on and it's just not reliable and you'll go
Yeah.
So like it's very awkward to know what to do. And I think what's happened is that Riot have kind of had Ahri as this champ that it's, the elements of it are cool aesthetically and things like that. But she's got outdated, and what I've said is that there's no reason to play Ahri anymore. You might as well just play like a Vex. Vex has better wave clear, it has better burst, it has better utility. There's just champs that do her job in every regard just better. And I think they need to rework her basically completely. They need to make her, because back in the day, when she was really viable, that's when she was a clear assassin identity. She had DFG. She was a very burst-oriented pick assassin because she had damage. She had burst damage. But I think what happened, they realized that if you give her too much damage, then her wave clear gets too high, and then she kind of breaks the game. So then you need to find a way to put burst on her kit.
Yeah.
In a reliable fashion, but then just play Fizz. It's just weird, you know? So I think that like that type of champ, a generalist, won't even be made anymore. And they're just outdated as a champ design. And yeah, Ahri's is one of the few. So if you're out there and you're not in the MLL too, just if you're kind of learning to climb through, especially through gold, what you want to do, like step number one, is think about what does my champion want to do? You need to be, do I want to farm to X item? Do I want to be heavy trading because I want to be trying to go for a solo kill? Do I want to be ganking all the time because that's my, what does your champion like to do and why? And when? And what levels are you strong? What items are you strong? You need to be clear on these things because that is what's going to prevent you. What I said today, if you don't have a reference point, you don't know what to say yes to, and you don't know what to say no to.
Yeah. In terms of fights, decision making.
You don't know, and if you don't know what to say no to, what's going to happen? Nothing is going to be replicable.
Yep. And you're just gonna be
And
lost.
I had someone this morning come in, he's learning the game through Akali. You cannot learn the game through Akali. I've said this, I mean, I'm like, okay, you can, but it's incredibly difficult. You're making the game a lot harder. And I said to him, your trading patterns, Akali's not a champion that has a very specific way of trading. Sometimes you got to use your abilities reactively. You got to use your E reactively. You got to use your Shroud to use the movement speed to avoid a skill shot. Like it's a very dynamic type of trading.
Be creative. It's a lot of creativity.
Champions with a lot of dynamic kits, Zoe, Akali, even like Yasuo in a way, they can be very awkward for people to learn the game because you don't know how to replicate certain things. That's why Annie is so good for a lot of introductory mid laners, because your reference point is so goddamn clear. I'm going to walk out with my stun. I'm going to get a trade. I'm going to use my E for defense, and I'm going to one shot at 6, ignite, electrocute, boom. Like, you just know what you got to do. So then you can actually learn the game holistically and gain spatial awareness and situational awareness. You know, and so that's why people say Annie. So that's like the underlying reason. Reference points.
Trying to think of like champions in the jungle that become generalists. I mean, jungle's in a position that can have a really good map influence no matter what champ you're playing, right? Like, at the end of the day, if a waves are really stacking and you've got, you can pretty much dive that on any champ, right? Like,
that's
it's not
true.
too much. I mean, other champs are better at it than others. Like, I play a lot of Lee and Rek'Sai, which
but if you
it really
think about it, Nathan, okay, let's say...
Like, Udyr went from, with the items, very clear identity, right? Like, super tanky, insane engaged, did lots of damage.
But what you did with Udyr when you climbed, you gave him an identity.
I gave him an identity.
Udyr was a generalist, in a way, or then people went on different tangents. There was the hardcore damaged, like hardcore, was it really high damage Phoenix stance, was it, or Tiger stance?
Tiger stance, yeah.
And then there was the more tanky Turtle stance, Phoenix stance for wave jungle clearing and like
no one really played
utility.
that way.
But that was you gave yourself a reference point.
Yeah.
In a way. That's what I mean by reference point. This is outside of win conditions. This is completely irrespective of win conditions. This is kind of like what your champ fundamentally likes to do. Are you like a carry jungler? Are you appealing utility? Or not saying all these junglers can gank, right? Shyvana can still gank if a kill is a kill, right? On a stacked wave. But like, what does the champ want to do? I think that's why I think Lee Sin, in a way, is a generalist, because you can do many things. You can fill many shoes. You can be appeal...
You can both peel, and that's why it's
hard for introduction.
You peel,
gold
you can also
jungler
assassin.
should not play Lee Sin, not because he's mechanically demanding. I think that's one aspect of it, but it's not intuitive what you want to do. I want to full clear and just farm?
As you said with the card, it's a lot of reactive. It's like the way you play fights is very reactive. I mean, sometimes there's an opportunity to get a pick on a squishy. Sometimes you need to play slow front to back.
And that's why
versus someone like Eve, it's like pure pick side lane.
Oh, Nunu, clear identity.
Pure just W snowball. Like, your entire champ, if you can't hit a snowball, you lose the game.
And I love that. And so Lee Sin, it's even difficult to come up with an analogy with a champ like Lee Sin. You can give an analogy with the kind of the way they fight, but even then it's dependent on the scenario.
That's right.
And that's what I did with We Do Our Guys. We give an analogy to like what the mindset should be like. With my Casio guide, I did Mike Tyson. You got to be willing to take damage or get in someone's range and really skill check and use the mechanics, because you can't do damage otherwise. So that's a mindset. Now I know I got to head into this fight with the intention to kind of get in range and kind of play that distance and, because I'm strong if I can get in range, but if I don't, if I play like a bitch, I'm just not going to do my damage. That's a mindset. What's the mindset of elite, in gold? It's hard. It's hard. It's depending on the situation.
We were relying on fundamentals, just mechanics overall.
And game sense and game understanding of win cons and who's strong and who's fed.
Yeah,
that's probably why, Nathan, sometimes you would struggle to articulate why Lee Sin isn't good.
That's a good
in
point.
Gold.
Yeah,
the reference point is not clear. You don't have enough understanding of the game to really adapt to your surroundings. You need to know. You need to anticipate everything in it, isn't it? Those certain champs. That's actually even talking through it now. Why Akali doesn't work and why Zoe doesn't work, because sometimes you do have to be reactive. Sometimes you got to hold your bubble. Sometimes you got to use it proactively. Sometimes with Akali you got to use your E. Sometimes you got to use it reactively.
Yeah,
it's overwhelming for an introductory player.
It's very hard to learn.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah, it's very hard to learn the game through those champs. I agree. Versus, all the people that have had massive success in Soul 2 have played very. My most successful guy was Olaf, right? Just people were just able, because that was so clear of what you want to do every game. And if you didn't do it, you lost the game. It's really simple.
And even if it's not the best plan, it's a plan.
Yeah.
It's a reference point. Because sometimes having a reference point, it's just, that's all you need. Just a reference point.
It'll prevent you from making mistakes.
Well, that's what I always say to my Ahri players who are playing Ahri. I said, fuck it. Even if this isn't the most efficient way to play Ahri, it's a way.
Just all in on it.
So I say, just play this burst-oriented style of, Ahri. It's not the most efficient way of playing the champ, but, who cares what the one tricks do? Just pick one of them, Just pick one of them.
All right, so that was the short-term part of the article, and it said more longer-term thinking. So Riot Games long-term investigations. In the long term, we're investigating a couple of larger spaces. To caveat, we're thinking about these spaces very broadly and do not have specific directions for them yet. We're just sharing them so you have an idea of what we're thinking about. We're not promising any particular outcomes. First off is burst damage. We're analysing how and when high bursts of damage and examining their effects on gameplay. We want to keep the game exciting with high stakes decision making, but we also want to ensure that fights are reasonably understandable and counterplay is still possible. We're still very early in this investigation, but our current belief is that burst kills happen too quickly and too often. One option we're considering is to reduce damage output under at least a few conditions, most likely mid-late game against very low defense champions. That's not saying we're deleting assassins or anything. It's a touchy area, and that's why we're taking our time to investigate the data. As a friendly reminder, we're not guaranteeing to ship anything in this space yet. Even if we do, the goal isn't to ensure you can never get one-shotted, force a tank meta, or any other hyperbolic areas.
I love that. I love the way they're wording that. It's very feel-oriented. Like that's on, and that's the way it should be. Let's just feel it out. Let's look at the data. Let's see what happens.
Yep.
That's what you got to put in the crown. Tying back to that video I roasted before, like. You got to have this in here to see what the hell happens.
Test it out, yeah.
You got to test it out. What do you want to happen?
Yeah.
You don't want this item to be there?
You can't really have, especially in the preseason at the time, you don't want to have an item that's like...
underpowered.
Just comes in, there's like, oh, no one's going to build it because you do no damage and you're not...
You want to make it overpowered to incentivize people to build it.
And then you can test it out and then you can go, okay, now we can tune it. It's much easier for items to be overtuned and go backwards than be weak and go forwards.
Yeah, 100%.
You're not going to have the data. No one picked.
You're not going to have the data because no one's going to build it. Yeah. And also on top of that, it's... You would want to get the overpowered stuff out of the way first when it's in preseason, when the ranked and stuff doesn't matter as much.
Second, we believe that systems like items and runes provide too much healing and sustain right now. We've done some work to address this over the course of 2021, but we're still meaningfully off from where we want it to be. We haven't settled on the details yet, including whether changes to systematic healing should go out in one large swing or through smaller changes spread out over time. The answer partly depends on what we end up doing with burst damage, because the longer it takes to kill champions, the more powerful sustain gets.
Yep, that is true. That's very smart. I didn't think of that. That actually makes a lot of sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because people are tanky or you can burst, and healing makes a lot more difference. Like, I think of it very practically when you're versing Vlad. Versus Vlad, you either have healing reduction, you can slowly chip him away, or you got to just one-shot him.
Yeah.
That's why Vlad is very unfun to verse in lower elo, because if you don't understand burst and wave management, it's just out of control.
And healing becomes like now, like with Eve, you don't build healing reduction because your job is to one-shot someone. Healing's on a thing. So
yeah, it makes sense.
The longer fights go, the more healing gets OP, but then it's like, then you got the burst and it's useless against burst.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a very complex dynamic.
So I think they're like factoring up a lot of they're getting a lot of factors there and
it's great
considering it. So it's
I think they're spot on, and I think they are going in the right direction. Remember, there was the fleet meta, right? They definitely, and they nerfed a few items. They nerfed Gore Drinker and stuff like that. Like, they are going in the right direction. They're just tinkering away. Like, I think League is in one of its most balanced forms ever. I think this next season is shaping up to be one of the most balanced seasons of League ever. Straight up.
Yeah, I mean, the jungle is fascinating. Like I've been saying, like, because right now, it's interesting what they did with the crabs. Now it's actually harder to get to level 6 for a lot of the junglers, right? Because you can't just do like 2 full clears and crabs and stuff like that. But it's not to say scaling junglers are still good, right? Like, I feel like it's very interesting. I think that early game junglers and scaling both work right now.
Yeah,
interesting.
I would agree with that.
You know, so yeah, the jungle. I mean, maybe it's just because it's preseason. We haven't seen pro play it. Maybe it would literally just go one way completely. But right now, I'm not feeling anything's more significantly stronger than the other.
Even in mid, like despite like the whole lethal tempo being a little bit overtuned and Victor and things like that, but I across the board, I can see the way the meta is. Like, it's viable to play many different ways in mid lane. You can play the TF, you can play the Cassio, you can play, you know, the Akshan, the Syndra. You can play all these different champs, and they all work pretty well. It's just depending on what style you like. I actually got asked, what do I think of the few overtuned? Because they know, people in the MLA know that I don't like answering this question because I don't like talking about what's OP and stuff like that.
Yeah, don't like generalization.
But I said there's 3 things.
Yeah.
Number 1, Yone specifically with Lethal Tempo, that interaction. I think Yone as a champion is something off with it.
Oh, Yona's getting out of control, dude.
It's out of control.
I've been banning Yona recently.
It's a very fickle champion because it obviously has no mana, relatively low cooldowns, high wave clear, non-committal trading
Very
as an
safe,
assassin,
yeah.
scales and can win lane. It's a tricky combination. Like, it's too much outplay potential. I think they need to do the Kassadin approach to it, where it's like we need to make its early game way weaker. You know, the thing with
You're saying
Yasuo,
there's not much outplay potential. That's
I
what
mean,
you
a good Yone can nearly always survive a lane pretty
Yeah.
well and have somewhat decent outplay potential. There needs to be something that, especially, and I think Yone is one of the champions that is. It's not dictated by the champ itself. It's dictated by how the champ interacts with items and runes, because he's auto attack reliant. So when if Lethal Tempo gets altered in some way, or changes the way it's altered or interacts with Yone as a champion, then the champ can be pretty balanced. And that's why I think when Shieldbow was really strong, Yone was objectively overpowered. Like, it's very hard to balance Yone because of how he interacts with these runes and items. So that's why I think they're taking their time, because you don't want to kill the champ. He's such a really cool, well-designed champion. It's more about how do you want to do it in a way where he's healthy and what is his identity, you know? Because I think they do a good job with Yasuo in the sense that he's more feast or famine, he's more committal, and he has obvious counterplay. Like, he has a long cooldown on his win wall, which in a way you could say Yone has a long cooldown on his E, but Yone doesn't have to go in. He's not in that location. Like, he can kind of sit back and farm, and more so than Yasuo. And Yasuo power troughs way more than Yone. It feels like Yone doesn't really have a power trough. Like, you do kind of a little bit, but even when you get Berserker Greaves, you're still okay.
Yeah.
So that's what I don't like about that. And the two other gems, obviously Victor, it is overtuned objectively. No, that will come down a little bit though. And Aurelia. Aurelia is fascinating, by the way. No one plays it because everyone's terrified of it. It is objectively unfair.
Really?
But no one's good at it. No one can play it.
It's just really hard.
But if you're good at it, I think it's unfair. It's genuinely unfair. The damage is too high. Again, similar problem to Yone. Doesn't have a weak point. You're strong and early. You're strong 1 item, 2 items. You scale well. It's just a very difficult champion to play. And I think if someone would be willing to put in the time to learn that champion, I guess overcome the adversity. There's a guy actually we saw 610 link me. His name's Arel King in EU. He got to like 1.1 thousand LP with like a 68% win rate with only Aurelia. And just picking it no matter what. You know, it's pretty impressive. So you get some very, very good Aurelia players that can just make it work. So those are the 3 champions that I think need a bit of work at the moment. But healing, I think that they're going in the right direction. Healing is, like I said before, stealth and healing. They're the 2 very difficult stats to kind of measure. I remember I did my itemization guide and we talk about Omnivamp and things like that. You can't even measure Omnivamp because how it reacts with certain champions who build attack speed and all that stuff, that sort of thing. It's just too awkward to play around with. So we'll see how they go. I like the way they're thinking, though. I really do like the way they're thinking.
Considering all the options, all the factors.
Again, props to Riot.
God, you're such a Riot apologist.
And we're getting paid from Riot, Nathan. Come on, you got to be nice.
After this, I'll be adding Riot Nathan. This is going to be my new
Riot Nathan, yeah. And we remember we have all the good accounts. Riot give us the good teammates. That's why we're high elo, Nathan.
Yeah.
So everyone else,
right.
they get bad teammates.
Yeah.
We get good teammates.
Yeah.
Because Riot, so they have this advanced
Never
algorithm.
loses queue.
Yeah, I'll show you. This is what someone wrote to me in my Discord about our accounts. Nathan.
Jesus, is this what you talk about in your Discord?
Yeah.
This is such low quality
Oh
conversation.
no, it's getting out of control. This is one of the memes that was running through my
in the meme channel.
All right, sorry, give me 1 second here. Give me a second.
2 milliseconds.
And do you want to go into Mailbag after this?
Yep, we can jump into Mailbag after Curtis talks about his why Curtis is a
All right, well, I'll find it in a bit. Give me a second. We'll do a break and then come back for Mailbag, and then I'll kick it off with Mailbag.
All right, away we go. Welcome back for Nathan's Mailbag. Jingle, jingle, jingle song.
All right, we're back. So before we get into the questions, Nathan, I'm going to steal the show yet again.
Yep.
And yeah, so anyway, I found it.
Here we go.
So we'll talk about, some guy talking about how great the year was. And this guy came in piling with a sarcastic comment saying, damn, I wish I could grow like that. If only I had better teammates. And I said, yeah, I always get bad teammates. He says, I don't know, man. You made it to Challenger, so clearly your teammates play at a higher level than mine. Yeah, I said, yeah, Riot likes my account. And then Swagnar came and he said, you'd be bronze if you got my teams in NA. Said, no, remember, Riot likes me. They give me the better teammates regardless of the server. And then later on, this guy said, yeah, it's a crazy story, but believe me, it's true. When I was a data scientist intern at Riot Games, we were investigating using statistical clustering to matchmake people with the approximate same skill level according to win rate, match history, rank, MMR. Yep, it was all pretty standard and done with machine learning algorithms. However, there was a flagged project called Curtis Morgan, and according to Riot Dick Blaster, my supervisor at the time, that was the highest clearance project where only mathematicians working on the most cutting edge algorithms had to find precisely the best teammates for a man named Curtis Morgan to always win the game. I think his name was Coach Curtis was like, damn, I hate that lucky bastard. And some guy was saying, damn, you honestly had me in with the first 4 sentences of that message.
He actually works at Riot.
He was like, oh my God.
This guy worked at Riot. He worked at some project. That's a good conspiracy theory because that actually makes sense. If you're on this podcast, because you're successful in solo queue, you can say, look, this is what I do. This is all my mindset of the game. But they're actually giving you all this luck with all these teammates. So you actually...
This could actually be some grand conspiracy. So we're actually partnered by Riot.
Yeah.
And they've actually given us an advantage.
We're
an undercover agent. And they're trying to get us to push the healthy relationship stuff with the game.
Yeah.
But they're doing it
But
in a
we're
subtle
actually
way.
just getting luck. It's all
luck.
You don't need a healthy relationship with the game. Yeah.
So everything we said is just wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Good, man. It's a good conspiracy.
I'm looking forward to them in the comments, guys.
That's a great conspiracy. We get Alex Jones on here and he can talk about it.
Anyway, that was the lowest IQ conversation in Discord ever. Give me all those persons' names. If any of them want to switch to jungle, want to get insulted, they're banned. All right, our first question for Nathan's mailbag here. It's not really a question, it's a letter. More specifically, a love letter.
Oh!
The title of this email is Hello and Goodbye, a love letter.
Oh, no.
And this is from Harold.
Am I going to cry?
It's a love letter, Curtis.
Okay.
You might be all sobby,
Okay. Get the tissues out.
Hello, Nathan and Curtis. I'm about to drop a bit of a long letter, but I know it's your speciality, so buckle up. My name is Harold. I discovered Coach Curtis on YouTube a couple of months ago, where I specifically loved his videos about mindset and ranked journey. I've previously felt pretty alone in my love for the game of League, especially when viewed more as a traditional sport. Shortly after this, I discovered the Broken by Concept podcast and quickly became addicted. It was so refreshing to hear someone talk about the game I love, not with a blind rage, but with a professional and critical approach. A month ago, I joined MLA. I've always loved Anivia, but 3 blocks, reviews, learn objectives, and so on has just elevated that to a new level. Unfortunately, I have to leave the mid lane academy because with this new way of playing League, I get tilted out of my mind at myself when I, in my busy day, play a normal or just one game of ranked when I'm not focused. I see myself play not for improvement, but for the singular game and succumbing to rage and tilt to a point I haven't before. This worked great, but when I had the time to play a 3 block a day and review, but that just wasn't the case anymore. Obviously, it sounds like he's really busy with his schedule and he can't do that process and the improvement approach to the game. I've always been the type to get swept up by something new and really want to improve at it. This has fortunately, but unfortunately for my League play, let me develop a lot of hobbies, including but not limited to bass, piano, badminton, bouldering, baking, cooking, speedrunning, escape rooms, hiking, board games, and so on. On top of this, I work 40 to 45 hours a week, which I love. And when I get off work, I almost always prioritize being with friends. On top of this, I'm hopefully soon going to be in an amateur baking competition. So that is going to take a lot of my time the next few months. I'll therefore be leaving the MLA for a little while I focus on the other things. I will, however, not be leaving empty-handed, as I will steal your entire process, Curtis, and use it to hopefully win the competition and to get good at my other hobbies. I look forward to get back into League in the MLA once I win the bake-off. Sincerely, Harold.
The Great British Bake Off.
So it looks like Harold here, he's suffering from success. The process, the growth mindset from the
Nothing
broken
wrong
light
with
concept he's just doing everything.
He's just got to make sure he doesn't become a generalist.
Yeah, well, that's the only thing, when you say all these things, like League, how we talk about in that last episode, the Nice one, about it's important to get really good at something because then you really get to know the love of it, right? Like, if you're doing all these things, you're not going to be able to get to like the level where you can really like appreciate the craft.
Be creative. You can't be creative.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes yeah, we've been very vocal about this. The game gets more fun the higher you get, and with any endeavor, like I said with skateboarding, the better you get at something, or guitar, the more fun it is because you now have the skill set, the muscle memory, the baseline fundamental understanding, so that you can apply your own touch on things. So look, at the end of the day, we're not here to really tell him how to live his life. At least in our experience, getting good at one or two things is superior or more satisfying, I would say, or more enjoyable than being average at a lot of things. Yeah. I would say. Yeah. Again, just our take. That's definitely not
we have
objective.
A very old school Stone Age approach. It's like you're either the baker or the blacksmith or the farmer. Like that's
right.
We're very old school, aren't we, Curtis? So yeah. So that's awesome to hear. And when you have the time to get back to really taking the game seriously again.
I mean, but the process is going to work with anything.
That's right.
It doesn't matter whether it's baking or skateboarding or guitar or piano or whatever. You do something with intention. You look at the process and how would you did it, and then you can get specific. What went wrong? Why is it wrong? Try it again. Rinse, repeat. Take those learnings. Go again.
Yeah.
As much intention as possible. That's it. Rinse, repeat.
And
get into the review.
Yeah, and I mean that's what we talk about the podcast. Like League for me was the first time I learned how to learn. I actually got good at something because I hated everything at school. Right. There's no one thing, but then once I actually figured out, this is how I can get one good thing. It's like, okay, well then how can I dominate the esports business side of things? How can I, start a YouTube channel? It just flows and flows and flows, right? All right, next one here. This is an interesting one. This is from... oh, never mind. He said, please call me anonymous.
Don't you're going to have to put a beep there.
Yeah.
You put a beep.
Yeah. All right, so my bad. That's just the. It's funny because you put it as his first line as well, but like I always do the first thing. I'll read the title and the person, and then
end of review.
All right, the title of this email is Esports versus NFL. Esports dynasty building.
Wow, it's exciting.
To Nathan and Curtis, just finished watching another week of NFL football, and it ended up sparking a couple of questions I have for you two fine gentlemen. I was staring into an empty void after my team lost, an absolute cracker of a game, and my heart felt as though it was ripped away from me. This brings me to my first question. Do you think it's possible for esports to ever reach the emotional attachment that pro sports have? This would pertain to both players and fans. I feel as though it is impossible for esports to do this, as the players in pro sports can change the tide of a game through sheer will and desire, whether it be refusing to get tackled and fighting for that extra yard or kicking a ball with that extra bit of power to beat the keeper. This is what makes pro sports captivating to fans, in my opinion, so you can feel the emotions of a game as you root for your team. By contrast, in esports, I believe players are rewarded for playing with less emotion and more robotic. Also because every situation can only yield X, Y, Z results based on variables at play. Whereas in pro sports, anything can happen on any given play, meaning there's always an element of hope within each moment of the game. What are your thoughts on this? And do you agree with my take? What do you think esports would need to add in order to reach the same level as pro sports? It's a very interesting question.
Do you want to start? Do you want me to start?
You can kick off, Curtis. Let me just state my thoughts.
I think it can.
So you think right now it doesn't?
It doesn't, but it can, I think. Okay, so let's differentiate a few things here. Number one, I think when it comes to a sport like NFL, what makes it so amazing is it's the entire entertainment package. It's the geographical location of the team. Like you're kind of tied to your city.
City, yeah.
There is also the factor of the environment, like the huge crowds and the chants and the colors, and it's the whole thing. It's
Experience.
not. It's the whole experience. That's what League is missing largely, especially due to COVID and the fact that everything is international. We're missing the experience of going to a game, or even think of like NFL. It's like isn't it Sunday night NFL or Monday NFL? It's like a day. Like, you know what you're getting into. It's like, I'm going to, on this day, there's going to be these games. There's going to be the pregame entertainment, whatever it's going to be, the commentators, the analysts. Like, it's the whole package. It's a very culturally ingrained experience as well, because they're tied to colleges as well. So it's not just what you're seeing on the field. It's the culmination of many things up until that point that are contributing to your attachment to this team. So given that a sport like NFL or the traditional sports have been around and they have intricate, pretty thorough systems that have kind of been at play for a long time, I think that esports can, given they get integrated into colleges and talent development pathways do get established over a long period of time. This is all an if, depending if League is around long enough for this to happen. If League does get kind of evolve and change and kind of stays as a game for long enough over the next 50 years or something, then sure, I see no reason why it couldn't.
All right, we're back.
Just,
so we had some technical difficulties.
Just don't ask, honestly, guys.
All right, so we left it off. I was doing my take, but then we were cut off. So, Curtis, your last stop.
The last thing I was going to say was, I might have forgot some things, but I was just saying, I think a younger version of Timmy here, I know it's not Timmy, but let's say young Timmy who grew up in a different time, maybe like 15 years in the future, where esports is more, I guess, integrated with society and integrated more with the colleges and there's more development tracks, and it's more of just like a respected thing. That person, that young kid, will have a much deeper connection with the sport than he would, because he's kind of grown up in the era of American football and NBA and things like that. It's like, we grew up at a different time. I don't think we can have that connection. We have connection with things that we grew up as a kid a lot of the time. It's part of us. It's part of who we are. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Yep.
I think also the narratives and the excitement around it, like you said, like Timmy growing up, he sees his parents get really excited, and like the event of going to a game, it's just not really there.
And everyone wears the jerseys. And
if I was thinking about why did I get interested in UFC, it was because of Conor McGregor. It was just like
storyline,
super interesting guy, like trash talking the players. Like, I didn't really care. I mean, for me, I never did fighting growing up. Actually, I did do a bit of karate, but I mean, not nowhere even close to that sort of level, right? Obviously. But like that's what got me interested in the sport, just because of like the people, you want to see them win and lose, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think that was just not there, just the personality wise and stuff like that.
No one gives a shit about half the teams.
No one cares. Yeah. The narrative, the model for esports is the only teams that will get a fan base is teams that win. That's just it.
Well, it's true though. You're not going to follow a fighter that doesn't win though, in a way.
Well, it's different in traditional sports. Because
right. I'm thinking of UFC specifically though.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You don't, I mean, obviously the teams have, fluctuates in ticket sales and stuff, but there's still a city behind that team, even though maybe people don't go to the games as much.
Right, and that ties into the geographical element of things.
That's the thing, yeah. So that changes things a lot, I think.
But I think because of the lack of history in the sport, when it's such in League anyway, it's so young. I mean, it's just a baby. There is very little history to be had. Very little storylines.
It's just not there. And the format changes every year. Like, we're still experimenting. We're still in the early
and the
phases.
other thing as well to keep in mind, Nathan, why there might be not a very deep connection. From a Western, let's talk Westerners, because we can't talk about Eastern culture. Yeah. But from a Western culture, NA, stuff like that, a lot of the time, Korean and Chinese teams are winning.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's very difficult to build that connection with, and especially when the teams are filled with a lot of imports as well. I feel like there's an element of that as well. So I think there is a bit of an issue there, which might limit the connection you have with the team. There's something to consider.
The most interesting thing for me about this is when I was at Dials, when we talk about sponsorship and pitch meetings and stuff, was the thing that differentiates sports and esports is that the participation is nothing like sports. Like, you don't go and play an NFL game after you watch an NFL.
Or American football.
Or American football, right? Or like basketball, because, and you can't replicate what Michael Jordan or something did, right? But for league, you can like look at a pro game, then the next game you pick that champion. Theoretically, you can do everything that person can do because it just clicks and
even like a random goal player could sit in practice tool and practice that combo he saw Rookie doing with LeBlanc. Like he could do it. He could do it, and he could probably focus on it and do that in a game of solo queue if he really wanted to. But think about that, yeah. For this dude watching an NFL game, you're not going to be able to replicate Tom Brady.
You got to get the whole team ready to go and everything. You need an offense and a defense. That's just
logistically it's so hard to do. You're spot on. The participation, that does give a little bit more connection to the game itself, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because I think for us, Nathan, when we watch esports, what we love is how it would feel to be in their position.
True, yeah.
I think we can resonate more with a pro player, like, because we play the game, you can actually resonate more with the player and what it would feel like to be in that situation. Like, if you actually think, what would it feel like to be this player right now? And we even have pro view and things like that. That's really interesting from a spectator's perspective. Whereas in NFL, you don't even really know what it would feel like to be Aaron Rodgers or, is Ezekiel Elliott or any of those guys. You wouldn't know what it would feel like to be in that scenario. You can't, it's so distant. Like, you kind of know it's hard, right? It's a different level between knowing how it would feel like to like knowing it's hard. I think that's something there as well, potentially.
I agree.
So like, I think it's really difficult to pinpoint whether or not we would ever get that connection, but I think it's theoretically possible. But it would require, again, a significant integration. I mean, the content would have to improve. Like, the storylines and the narratives would have to be improved, like, massively. The league itself would have to kind of grow in respect. The integration of gaming and league into high schools and universities and colleges would have to grow. It would all have to kind of go in that direction. Funnily enough, though, in China, they are very connected.
They are, yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Like, you see those videos of the colleges in China?
After they
like,
won.
the entire apartment block, everyone is swinging flags, running down streets. It's like, it reminds you of watching soccer or football in Europe. It's crazy. There's like chants, like huge squares of people. So maybe I think they have a deeper connection with esports for sure.
It's a big interest overall of the game over there.
It's more culturally accepted. It's more integrated into the way they live their life comparatively.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to go running around with like a Cloud9 flag down the street, people are like, what are you doing?
Okay, there's also one thing I want to touch on here, Nathan.
Yeah.
I think we shouldn't conflate the feeling one gets versus the way it's expressed. So I want to use an example. In Australia, in Melbourne, especially, Victoria especially, football, or AFL, Australian Football League, is very big. It's huge. If you go to anywhere, someone's going to ask you about the footy. Did you watch the footy? Who do you barrack for? Like, we went to the beach the other day, and then they're like, who do you barrack for? It's like the first thing that people ask. It's so big, in fact, especially in Melbourne, when the grand final happens, they literally shut down streets after Richmond win the grand final. Like, the entire Richmond, the suburb of Richmond, literally gets filled. Every pub, every bar, people are jumping on cars. It's crazy. Hundreds of thousands of people fill the streets. Given how, like, as a percentage of the population we have, it's incredible. The actual percentage is incredible. But you got to be very careful here. Just because that's the way that culture and footy, that's footy culture, that's the way it manifests. That's not to say how some kid in their room watching with their friend on Discord watching, SKT or Damwon versus EDG, you can't really measure the excitement and that one person would have comparatively to another. They might express that in a very different way by highlighting clips and, maybe screaming a little bit. They're not going to go to a pub and smash beers over people's over people's heads. They're going to manifest their interest in a very different way. So, yes, I think that there can be different levels, similar levels of excitement, but it's going to be manifested in a very different way. And I think that's an important distinction to make. Because the way culturally, I think, again, things are changing. And that's ingrained in the AFL culture and the European football culture and NFL, where everyone has a barbecue outside the game. Like, there's cultural things, events, and ways we manifest that excitement. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I think that's also something to consider. So it's very difficult to measure. Very difficult to measure.
Right, well, that was his first question. His second question was in regards to contrast of culture between NFL and esports.
Interesting.
Specifically LCS. The NFL and esports are polar opposites in regards to the importance of culture. There's two current NFL examples I'd like to use. The first is the New England Patriots. They had the greatest sports dynasty ever, headlined by Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. Last season, Tom Brady left, and the Patriots missed the playoffs for the first time in 20 years.
Bloody Buccaneers.
Yeah, we had that Tom Brady episode last year, remember?
Legend. Go to the Buccaneers.
This would be the point in which most organizations implode, but not the Patriots. Belichick assessed his team's strengths and weaknesses, made modifications in the offseason, and despite a slow start and the media going crazy saying the Patriots need to rebuild and that they are amongst the worst in the league, the culture established enabled them to weather the storm, and as of writing this, they are the number one team in the conference and have the longest active winning streak in the NFL. The second example, we'll use the Miami Dolphins and the head coach Brian Flores. Coach Flores was an assistant coach under Bill Belichick before landing the head coach job with the Dolphins. Prior to his arrival, the Dolphins were a dumpster fire of a franchise. They hadn't truly been relevant for decades. In his first season, there was a noticeable progression of the Dolphins. They started out getting destroyed the first bit of the season, and they began to lose closely and beat the bad opponents they faced. And by the end of the season, they were beating some of the best teams in the league. In year 2, it carried over, and Dolphins went 10-6 and just missed out on playoffs. This season, the Dolphins started out 1-7, but Coach Flores never lost the locker room, and ever since then, they rattled off 6 straight wins. I preface my final question with this because I believe this couldn't happen with the current state of esports. However, if some multi-millionaire came in with a belief in culture, much like that in the NFL, and bought into the LCS, offered you two some handsome 6-figure salaries, a 5-year guaranteed contract, with the objective of building a dynasty with the only NA players, how would you two go about such a task? Really get into the details as to the steps approach you would have.
This is a very... I mean, this will be the last question because this is going to be so much.
Yeah.
Okay. First things first. I want to preface this by saying NFL, American football, and specifically the league of the NFL, I think it's the greatest sport of all time. Is my opinion.
More than the NBA, Curtis?
It's better. The close rival is UFC.
Yeah.
I think like fighting, like the hand-to-hand combat, but I think NFL is like the great, like as an overarching the entire thing, the combination of physical, mental, strategy, tactics, coaching, it's the whole shebang. It's everything. You know, so I think that I don't think league as a sport can ever beat. I don't think it can ever be as good as it. I don't think there is an element of there's a physical part of like NFL, like the physical element of it, I think just trumps esports in a way. Personally, for me, I think that like, and again, I'm a massive league, obviously I'm a league fanboy. I played it my entire life. I have the choice to play a lot of physical sports, but I chose to play gaming for a reason. I love it. There was and I'm not even comparing him in terms of the difficulty or anything like that. Purely as an actual sport, encapsulating, we're talking at the pro level. This is purely like esports versus NFL, not the game of the sport. Like it's just a better package. It's a better spectator experience. It's coaching actually exists. Strategy, and because the game doesn't change, I feel like there's so much more that you can do as well. I just find it's hard to articulate. I need to really maybe spend some time to think about it. I just find that it's superior. And even if they were out at the same time, that doesn't even really make sense because they're completely different mediums. I just think that NFL would win. American football would win out in popularity. So, yes, those storylines are incredible, right? The whole Tom Brady going to the Buccaneers, winning with the Buccaneers, again in playoffs. Like, that is ridiculous. The reason these storylines can even exist, though, is because coaching is real. Coaching at the esports level, it's still very much in its beginning stages.
Yeah.
There is a handful of coaches in the entire world. I think there's probably less. There's probably, in talking the East as well, there's probably less than 20 real coaches.
Well, I mean, my perspective is that coaches at the moment, they don't actually have much influence, I would say, over the results of these teams.
No, it's mainly just the players.
Yeah.
Like, you can't tell me you're going to get Showmaker, Nuggery, Ghost, Canyon, and Beryl on a team. You can plug and play a lot of coaches, and they're
That's
going to
right.
get top
The
10.
same results,
They're going to
probably.
be pretty much similar, whether or not maybe the coach will make the difference between coming first or second, or first and fourth, whatever. They're pretty much going to win nearly every single time because the players are just so goddamn good. The game is dominated by players. Coaches can only have so much of an influence.
Yeah.
Again, coaches are good from a management perspective at the highest level. When you're talking at the highest level, they're more psychologists and
So you're
therapists
talking
and
about
managers.
building culture as well.
Yeah, and building culture. That's what they're for. Whereas why I think American football is better is good. They also have to think about strategy. Coaches have a genuine say and a huge impact on the strategy. It's more like chess. It's like they literally get to plug and play your strategy versus strategy. Whereas league, I just don't feel like it's coaches definitely have
There's not that much. It's weird. Like there's not that much strategy currently with the way the game's played. It's like there is a lot of correct and non.
I mean, there
like,
is
bad
with comps, but
decisions.
it's very
comps.
constrained.
But it's that's decided in the draft. Like once you're in the game, you just now you need to
yeah,
execute.
yeah. Then you just got to execute. It's more than just draft phase, which is I'm not
The
discrediting
draft
that.
phase is definitely
It is
can
definitely
be huge.
big.
That's actually where the coaches and stuff also have the most influence. But still,
draft.
players have champ mastery and limitations on their champ pools. So
Yeah, it's
and even with culture as well, I think that players are more important. Like I'd say, I think league's way more relevant closer to NBA because there's less players.
yeah. But even then, like there's plays and like think about like Nathan, you can't discredit like John Wooden and stuff. Like that proves that coaching.
That's true.
John
That's
Wooden
true.
proves that basketball is more.
That was at like a amateur level, like at the
It's college basketball.
yeah. Sorry, I mean the second level though, like
Yeah.
getting up to people to get into like an
Yeah.
NBA level. Like I think that the John Wooden stuff is a little bit different because
But I think what we're getting at here is that the skill set of a coach in American football, comparatively the skill set of a coach in maybe even NBA and in league, is very different. You got to over-index in certain skill sets. And again, they're all great and very hard things to do, but they're different. I would say if we were having a go being coaches, say we had free reign. Where would we start? I think number one.
I think it's very simple for me, dude. Like, I would just purely tell the guys, I'll get 5 players and try and up the level of solo queue. That's it. And 0 scrims and just come last.
I think step number one would be completely and utterly aligned with the management. That would be step number one. I would have like the toughest conversation possible with management. This is likely what's going to happen. This is the sort of results or non-results that we're going to expect. This is exactly what our approach is going to be. Like, so there's no surprises from a management and investment perspective. That's step number one. You would have to get aligned with all the owners, stuff like that. Step number 2, you would have to get the players to really buy in with and like be very clear about how we're going to run it. Like from the get-go. Like you don't want you want any things that are on their mind from the get-go to be kind of said. It's like
all the questions.
We're going to focus hardcore on solo queue.
This is how we're going to deal with adversity.
This is so I think the role that I would take largely is I mean ideally I don't think I could do mid lane coach and the role that I would want to do. Ideally I would actually have to have someone else to do mid lane. Ideally I would hire a positional coach for every other role. You would be the jungle positional coach. And then I would actually urge what I want you to do specifically. This is what I would want to do. I would kind of want to be the more focused on comms. I would want to be focused on comms and post-game discussion. And I would want to be the person that is able to kind of do the draft and the post-game discussion. I would want you to run all the positional coaches. So like, obviously each of you are going to be like a top coach, jungle coach, mid coach, but then you kind of lead. Because I feel like the game is really influenced by the jungler in a way. And I feel like you would have a really good view of the game because you're the jungle. You get to see everything at play. So in a way, you're the jungle coach, but I would want you to kind of run the meetings of all the positional coaches. I would want one of the positional coaches to kind of take charge and run the positional coach meetings in a way. So kind of like head coach, assistant coach, but you also honing in on jungle and then kind of running the positional coaches. I would go deep on post-game discussion and getting a complete alignment between every role. The goal would be being every coach and every player has complete alignment on how the game is played and how they view the champ's identity and exactly how they view a game to be won from the start to finish. This will be started in solo queue. So if the coaches watching the solo queues the players solo queue can't even agree on how they would win that solo queue game, then that's a problem. So say you got a mid and jungle both in a solo queue game, and then they review this game together, the coaches with the players. If the coaches can't agree on how the game should be played out, you want all 4 players to be over time across the year to be as aligned as possible, because that's going to influence the way they play fights. It's going to play where they're going to be viewing like their priorities, and that's what my goal would be, to try and bring about as much alignment as possible. And then there would be a lot of 1v1s, a metric ton of 1v1s. There'd be a metric ton of solo queue. Everyone would be gym would be a mandatory every day for everyone, basically. And it'd be actually pretty simple. I think it would actually be very simple outside of that.
All right, Curtis. So his question was, so you think you'll be able to build a dynasty doing that, Curtis?
Well, he said specific. He said specifics. How would you do it,
yeah.
right?
Well, I mean, my answer to that question is it's just not possible. Like, I would need to be at it for 20, 30 years, dude. That's my perspective.
I mean, no, I'm not. I'm saying if we were to coach, that's what I would do. But
Yeah,
that's not to
a
build a
dynasty.
dynasty. That's like to do the foundation.
And then there's gonna be lots of flaws in that though, Curtis, and you gotta chip away at it and
That
stuff.
would be the start. That would be where I would
my
start.
foundation, Curtis, is purely because I mean, it doesn't even matter what I do. I could build a dynasty in NA, but if you want to win worlds, like the first problem solo queue, that's the first thing that needs to be.
I don't even think. I don't even know if a dynasty is even possible. Like, a part of me feels like it might not even be possible in League anymore. Hear me out. Like,
it is very difficult to win multiple years.
Because the reason is like, I don't know if being an esports professional is even sustainable in the first place.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't know if it even is.
Really? So you think that it could all collapse in a couple of years?
Like, okay, so let's say for some reason, Nathan, we coach for 20 years and we perfect it. We have in our mind what we think to be a pretty good model or structure. We might have just found out that the maximum amount of years you can win with the same players is like 2 years.
Yeah, well, then your job would be to find the next player.
And then you have to find the next players, but they're not going to be integrated into your system. They're going to take time to integrate into your system to build the alignment, which is going to be like an alignment period or whatever it might be, whatever we called it at the time. I actually don't even think you would win that third year. It might even be in cycles. It's like, okay, we're actually going to win every like
2 years.
So we're going to win for 2 years, and then people are going to get weeded out and burnt out, and then we're going to have to get a process of building for like 2 years. And then it's going to take a year to train them up.
That's what it was like in the NFL with Tom Brady. He didn't win back to back to back to back.
Yeah, but a dynasty is multiple years in a row. It's like the Bulls, isn't it? Like, did they win back to back to back? The Bulls.
Yeah, so the Bulls won 3 years in a row. Yeah,
that's a dynasty. A dynasty is A dynasty isn't you just win one then don't win. Then a dynasty is when you win multiple years in a row, isn't it?
No, the Patriots didn't. Did you call those guys a dynasty?
No, but that's because they had the same players, Nathan. It's the Bill Belichick and the Tom Brady.
They lost and they won again though. They lost many times, dude.
Oh well, look, I don't know when they did.
Okay, look, these are the years
because I think of
won.
SKT as a dynasty. I think of the Bulls as a dynasty.
These are
the
the
Lakers or something.
This is the years they won, Curtis. Okay.
Yeah.
2002.
Yep.
Then they lost 2008. 2004. Then they won 2005.
Yeah, so
those are pretty close. Yeah. Then they didn't win for 10 years. 2015 was the next time they won.
Yeah.
2017.
It's not even a dynasty, though. I wouldn't
2019. That's a dynasty.
It's not a dynasty.
Okay, well, there you go. That's not a dynasty.
I didn't agree. What even is a dynasty then?
Well, that's what he said.
A dynasty, in my opinion, is like it's like winning 3 times in a row, minimum. You can't. I don't even think winning 2 years in a row is a dynasty.
Okay.
In my opinion. Plus, and then you got to get specific. Is a dynasty when you have the same players? Because they did it with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, right? Yeah. You would have different players every 2 years, potentially. Yeah. So what I'm saying, and again, this is all theoretical. We have no idea what the fuck our coaching would look like if we did it for 20 years.
Yeah.
But it might not even be possible because the burnout rate, like the work ethic required to get that good, especially in NA, to be globally competitive, would be ridiculous. Like, you'd be solo queuing so much. They'd have to sacrifice their life completely.
That's right. It would be very difficult, yeah.
So I don't even know if it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't have an answer to the question. I have an idea of like where I would start. Just basically as simple as it is just make sure we're the best solo queue players in our region. That's step one.
The goal would be rank 1 to 5.
Yeah.
Or rank 1 in every role.
And then we will start working on the foundations.
Yeah.
That's basically it. And I don't even know if that would work, but that's my current view of what's the priority over scrims.
It'd be overwhelming. It's overwhelming to even think about it, isn't it? It's like an impossible task.
I mean, I haven't even... Curtis, you've been a coach for a team. I've never actually been a coach for a team.
The stress is unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's so stressful.
So there you go.
Who knows, man? I mean, one day, me and Nathan, we might go back into esports one day. Definitely not yet.
Not anytime soon.
Not anytime soon, that's for sure. But, yeah.
All right.
I mean, again, and I don't even like, in a way, like, it's an interesting question, but I even feel like a theorist for even, it feels like wrong.
Yeah, you are a theorist.
Because it's like in a way, because it's like, we know,
Yeah.
just being a mid lane coach, right? Or a jungle coach, how much we've
Dude, I
learned.
got so much more to go, dude.
We've scratched the surface. I said to Nathan the other day off camera, like, I was surprised at how much there is to being a positional coach. I never would have thought that. So I look back in a year ago, I thought I was good, but in reality, relative to where I am now, was dog shit. So then that means in a year from now again, I'm going to be, I think I'm good now, but I'm going to be dog shit. There is so much that we don't know as coaches that we're still figuring out. Imagine being a head coach of like an esports team. It's overwhelming to even think about how many things you could improve upon. You know, you don't even know what it would look like. It's just
No
a different, it's like new technology that hasn't even been invented. You know, it's like the next computer.
Yeah.
Great. I mean, it's cool to think about.
Well, another good question on the Nathan's mailbag. So we're happy to wrap it up there, Curtis.
Yep.
All right. Good work, everyone. Enjoy your New Year's. We'll see you.
Oh yeah, this is the last episode.
The last episode of the year.
Goodbye, 2020.
2020, Curtis.
2021.
You got
I always
the
think I'm in
right-
2020.
We're just permanently stuck in 2020, dude. Just never leave. All right. Good work, everyone. Let's keep on using the preseason to the best of our ability, and we'll see you next time.